Thanksgiving is a time for families across the country to come together. But in a heated and divided political climate, debates with relatives about what's going on here in Washington could threaten to tear families apart this Thanksgiving. So we're going to get some advice on how to keep your Thanksgiving meal with loved ones from turning into a political food fight. To do that, we turn to Beth Silvers and Sarah Stewart Holland. They're the hosts of the Pantsuit Politics podcast. They're also the authors of the book, I Think You're Wrong, But I'm Listening, a grace-filled guide to political conversations. Beth and Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Beth, let's start with you. You and Sarah are friends and colleagues, but you don't always see eye to eye politically.
No, we've had 10 years of practice now in coming together to talk about everything from abortion to marginal tax rates. We've gone through 2 Trump administrations now, which is a particularly heated time to be talking about politics. And I think what we've learned is that sometimes it's about policy, sometimes it's about style and personality. But we always try to come back to our friendship as the relationship that we're taking care of, which means we don't avoid anything because that hurts the relationship as much as digging into it. And we always end on our shows with something outside of politics so that we can just be people and friends again.
And Sarah, how would you describe your politics as opposed to Beth's?
Well, some of this is driven by personality, as it is in so many families across the country. You know, we align pretty closely on social issues, but we differ pretty significantly on the role of the government and how big it should be. And I think that's true for so many families. You can find areas of alignment. You know, when you get into the polling, even across the country, you see so much policy that Americans agree on. But when you get into the personalities of politics or the personalities of the people actually discussing the issues, that's where you run into some rough road. I run pretty hot. Beth runs pretty cool. And that's a personality difference, not a policy difference, but it can still create tension inside the conversation and the relationship. And so just understanding that, nobody's doing anything wrong. We're just different from each other.
Sure. Politics appears to be almost unavoidable these days. Beth, do you think when you sit down for your turkey and your stuffing, should you expect to get into these kind of political conversations? What should your mindset be going into Thanksgiving dinner?
I expect to, because it's around everyone. It's in the air. It's in the water. If you're not talking about it, then what you're almost communicating is I don't trust you to have this conversation with me. And so I would rather just have it, but have it in kind of a limited way where we say, you know, okay, we can absolutely talk about this. We know we have some disagreements among us at this table. It can be a little bit fun to learn more about each other. A question that I always recommend is if you're sitting with your family, say to each other, isn't it interesting that we grew up in the same house and we see this so differently? But just try to extract something new instead of mimicking a cable news panel around the table.
Sarah, if you're hosting Thanksgiving dinner, do you think you should set boundaries with your guests before they even ring the doorbell? Should Thanksgiving be a politics-free zone?
I think Beth is right that if you communicate strict boundaries, first of all, people feel resentment that you don't trust them to navigate these conversations. I find humor is a lot better approach to this, to say, you know, make a joke about, we all know this is going to be this person's touch point, or here we go again, you know, in a lighthearted way that communicates to everyone like we're in this together. Also, you know, a shared enemy. Pick a celebrity everybody wants to pick on. That's always an easy kind of off ramp if things get a little heated. I always think of that hilarious SNL skit where they just started singing the Adele song every time people started fighting. I think there's an easy way to make light of the fact that, look, the stakes are high. We all have really strong opinions about this because we're all invested in the country and we're all invested in each other and trying to convince each other. That's something that I think we miss a lot. Like, we're invested in each other. That's why we want people to understand where we're coming from.
It seems like everyone has at least one of those outspoken members of their family who wants to loudly pop off on politics. Beth, what do you tell Grandma Gertrude, Uncle Earl when they insist on sharing their polarizing political views and you just want to eat your pumpkin pie in peace?
Well, I think that you hear them out for a reasonable amount of time and then say, well, now let's get to the really intense thing. Who should win this football game? Just try to scoot them along. You know, people who feel that they are being annoying to everyone around them tend to double and triple down. So I think, like Sarah said, use humor, hold it lightly. It does really matter. But the thing is, we are not going to get up from the Thanksgiving table having changed each other's minds immediately. You might say something that plants a seed with someone and they're willing to come back and have another conversation with you, but you aren't going to get up and say, like, we can all now endorse the same candidate for president in 2028. So that shouldn't be the goal.
Sarah, you mentioned using humor. If things do get heated at the Thanksgiving table, what's another good move to make?
I think a tactic that I've stolen from Beth a couple times is to just say, are you interested in what I have to say about this? When people get really, really elevated and people get really, really heated, if you're not the person directly involved in the exchange, to insert yourself and say, does anybody care what I think about this? Because first of all, nobody wants to be a jerk and go, no, not really. So I think that there's a little off ramp there. And also it just says like, hey, what we're trying to do here is listen. We're trying to understand each other. And it sort of pivots people back to the goal. I think often that goes unstated. People think we do need to agree on a candidate, or you need to say, you know what? I have been wrong for all my adult life, and I would like to change my party identification here at the Thanksgiving table. Like, of course that's not going to happen, but there is sort of an undercurrent, I think, of people want that to happen and saying, guys, that's not the goal here. We just want to understand where everybody's coming from and sort of reorient and lower the expectations for what's going to happen is key.
Beth, do you agree? Is there a way to still talk about politics at Thanksgiving without wanting to chuck your mashed potatoes at your friends and family who have opposing views?
Absolutely. I think the best way to begin is to leave the president out of it because everybody has a strong feeling about Donald Trump. I've never met a person who's neutral about Donald Trump. And so I think bringing it as close to home as possible is helpful. Should we have this data center that's going up over here? What do you think about the plans to build a new school? We've got a lot of houses going up. How does everybody feel about that? The things that happen right in our communities tend to get people out of talking points that they've heard from a million other people. And then you can have a really interesting conversation. I moderated a local forum this weekend, and I loved how much I disagreed with everybody on the panel about something, but it didn't feel like disagreement that was going to tear us apart. You just learned something through it. And I think that can be really connective for families.
Healthy disagreement. Sarah, do you have any positive politics-free conversation starters that we could use at Thanksgiving?
Well, listen, it's a winning campaign strategy, and it's a winning strategy at the dinner table. Everybody wants to complain about the price of things. Everybody wants to complain about how much things cost or struggles in their own life or frustrations in their own life. And also, if you have kids around, they're always a good redirect. They're always a good way to celebrate, a way to focus on the things we share, which is we all hope for better for the next generation. And again, pick a celebrity to pick on. They're not there to defend themselves. They're nice and easy targets. There's a reason we all use celebrity gossip to grease the skids of so many things in our lives. So I always think that's an easy topic when things get really tough. And I have faced this a lot. I have a dad who's all the way on the other end of the political spectrum from me. And often, what I can find with him is hey, this is exhausting. Don't you wish we all had more spaces for agreement? Are we all ready to be a little more unified as Americans? And that is something him and I always agree on.
Beth, how about you? Any good conversation starters?
Listen, I'm a Kentuckian, so I'll talk college basketball with anybody all day. I think also my daughter loves to ask, what's everybody reading right now? Are you watching anything interesting on Netflix? Just ways to show people that you're interested in them. And all of that will eventually probably get back to politics right now, and that's okay. When it does, I think telling personal stories, instead of talking about SNAP as a program, talk about what your church does to help feed people in the community. Just keep bringing it inward to remind everybody we're just people here at the table. We don't have to do these abstractions.
What do you both think is the most important thing to remember when it comes to politics and Thanksgiving? Sarah, let's start with you.
Look, the thing that comes up often in so many policy areas of our lives and around politics in America and really around the globe is that people are lonely. And so if you are blessed to have a moment to gather with those you love and those that are close to you, really keep that front and center. This is a really special time. So much of our lives is spent online and in our screens and disconnected. And so if you get this moment to be connected and in a space, in real life, in person, with people who mean something to you. Don't take it for granted. Really enjoy it, really soak it up, and keep that at the center of what you're doing on that day.
And Beth, how about you?
Whether you're talking about politics or parenting or any other number of topics that can get heated in a family, what I always think about is I want, when this is over, to want to do this again. And I want the people I shared this table with to want to do it again with me. So how do we keep this coming back to a place where we'll all get up and say, you know what? I hope that we can gather again like this next year.
Sarah Stewart Holland, Beth Silvers, thank you so much for joining us and wishing you a happy and peaceful Thanksgiving.
Thank
you. Happy Thanksgiving to you.